welcome to another episode of the SD4L show. I'm Justin Thin. I'm here with my co-host Matt Sheehan. Matt, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday night?
Still standing, baby. We are still here. We are here to bring the Michigan State heat. JT, my man, how are you doing, man? Doing okay?
I'm doing well, Matt. When you say you're still standing, I do want to clarify, you actually record these podcasts standing up, right?
Quite literally standing the entire time. Yeah, okay. The laptop set at a perfect 4 feet 8 inches, so I can look at it eye level. So yeah, we are standing right here, Justin. You got that right.
Do you use a standing desk at work, or is this really just sort of
for that one?
You sit down the whole day, all 8 hours?
All 8 hours. Well, sometimes I'll get up and get myself a water or like a beer or something like that, and then go back to my desk. And my boss is really wondering what the hell's going on here. But beside that, yeah, you know how it goes.
Makes sense.
Yep.
I've seen some people do the standing desk thing for all 8 hours. Absolute psychopath behavior. But then I've seen some people that they'll do like an hour sitting, 30 minutes standing, hour sitting, 30 minutes standing.
That's kind of what the walking treadmill, like
I've seen those.
They walk in. That's what I'm talking. Like those people, they strive to be something. Those people are dogs over there. You just go ahead and log 8 miles of walking during your day. Like, sure, why not? As if the life of a cubicle isn't hard enough. Let's just put some tread on the tires too while we do it. So
absolutely, whatever. You know the people that they ask their landlord to increase the rent because they don't want to run from the grind. That's the people that do the treadmill at work thing.
Here. That's
shout
what I'm
out to them,
about, man. One time.
Speaking of, go ahead.
No, I'm going to jump you right now.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
Hey, everyone. Rate, review, subscribe, comment below. We're going to do this in the first 5 minutes of the show instead of the last 40 seconds. We're finally getting the hang of this thing. Look at us.
It is now a professional operation.
Seasoned veterans here on SD4L. We're off and running.
Yeah. I was going to say, Matt, speaking of the grind, the Michigan State 2023 and 24 basketball season has concluded.
Yeah.
In Charlotte, Michigan State fell to North Carolina.
Yep.
Probably a superior opponent. So in a vacuum,
I would say so.
Yeah, in a vacuum, not a crazy loss, but obviously the fact that they found themselves playing a 1 seed in the round of 32 after being preseason number 4 is the more appropriate way of looking at it from a disappointing lens than I guess anything that happened in that game. We saw flashes. We saw the first 12 minutes of that game. We saw the whole entire Mississippi State game that kind of showed the program is kind of still running, still humming. And then the scouting that came with those observations were great. But then the last 28 minutes or so of that North Carolina game kind of showed the talent deficit in spots still. And now we are here kind of diagnosing it, doing the postmortem here in the offseason. But I guess thoughts, Matt, on how the season went down and ended for Michigan State, if you have any.
It's tough to put lipstick on the pig of that season, right? And look, that's not going to shatter any news to Michigan State fans out there. This was a disappointing season, right? I mean, down to the end. And, of course, there's not a lot of shame in losing to that North Carolina team, especially when Harrison Ingram is going on and, making his season-high 5 3-pointers from behind the arc. They're hard enough to stop with R.J. Davis, with Armando Bacot, with Cormac Ryan when he gets hot. But, man, you throw in Harrison Ingram just catching fire. Of course, but that's kind of what you get after losing, 14 regular season games and getting that 9 seed. Kind of set yourself up for that date in Charlotte against a 1 seed. So, look, I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, you know what, wasn't so bad. Everyone should be a little happy. No, that was a bummer. But we will pick out some things that we can look fondly of as we go into the offseason and look to the future of Michigan State basketball. Are we not, JT, or am I reading the wrong show notes here?
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
The one of the things that I kind of had noticed, maybe not necessarily in the North Carolina game, but then again, he was still one of the better players there, like he had been all year. I personally wanted to just give some flowers to Malik Hall. Many games that they won this year were pretty much from him. I know Tyson Walker, you can say the same thing about, but Malik Hall was one of those guys where he kind of had a make or break kind of senior year coming into this year, just in terms from a legacy standpoint. And because everyone believed that he had more to give than he had given, not from an effort standpoint, but just production and putting it all together. And I would say that he did that for the most part this year. And everyone knows kind of the struggle with his dad's health and all of that. So
yeah,
just somebody that kind of gets some respect on the way out that he definitely deserved. Probably deserved regardless of what happened on the court, just from how he battled and was committed energy and effort wise. But when you actually produce in terms of a tangible output, it makes it much easier to kind of give those flowers, I would say.
That is the heartbreaking part about Malik Hall, is that, like, yes, he does graduate after a solid career here, especially his senior year, but there's not a lot of like accolades to go with it. And there's not a lot of banners. There's not a lot of like second team all Big Tens for him, right? And because, look, this is going to sound corny, but he truly is a Spartan dog. I mean, this guy fought through how many injuries throughout his career, including last year, where he had, I think it was a foot and a back injury at the same time. Seemed like he was going to miss the rest of the season, depending who you talk to. But he knew that, okay, well, even hurt, I'm still one of the better options on this team in the front court. I need to get back out there. And he did, and he gritted himself to the end of the year. Was it a perfect end of the year? No, of course not. But it's because he was playing on a foot that ended up needing surgery in the offseason. And finally, you do get a full healthy season. And I would say it was an overwhelming success for Malik Hall, at least. So he was more reliable in games than he wasn't. So, yeah, it's just between the injuries and, just like you said, everything going on with his dad back home, which I quite literally cannot imagine what that would be like, especially as a college athlete, as if it isn't hard enough doing that. Yeah, I mean, Malik Hall, in every sense of the word, is a Spartan dog for life. So, I mean, just bummed that it just ended with just one Sweet 16 appearance in his whole career here. So
yeah, definitely well said there in all regards. And obviously Tyson Walker, the personal statistics and everything speak for themselves there. So another guy that did all he could and made the most of his time at Michigan State. One of those portal transfer guys that transfer up just to compete at a higher level, not really with any ulterior motives beyond that, and just wants to compete and use his talent at the highest levels. And he did that, I would say. So great to see kind of what he was able to make of himself. But like you said, not really the team accolades there that you'd like to see those guys leave with. But I guess,
Tyson Walker.
Definitely.
I'm just going to interrupt right now. One, what is the thing you were going to miss the most about Tyson Walker? Because for me, it is his defense. Like, you will never see hands that quick.
Yes.
This side of the Mississippi, especially wearing the green and white.
Yeah.
Like, you could just count him for 2 steals a game because just black belt karate hands. Like, I'm going to miss that so much.
I agree. That's definitely my answer too. Because like people will say like the scoring runs, right? But like to me, I think those are kind of inconsistent. Like you see, he starts like a game like the Ohio State game, kind of being like the guy, the X factor, and then even like the North Carolina game and stuff like that, where he like starts hot, or like he'll finish hot, but he didn't do anything kind of prior to that. There was a lot of those kind of moments with him where I think I even tweeted this out during the game, where Tyson Walker was probably the best scorer on that entire court, and then he went 5.5 minutes without taking a shot during that stretch. Like that never could happen. That's not acceptable at all. But like still, like I said, like very talented scorer when he wanted to be. But defensively, like he was always locked in. Like I never saw a possession off from him, and the stuff that he could do with his hands. Like there's times where like you see guys at the Division I level dribbling the ball without any fear of the ball being taken away from them, and it never is taken away from them in those cases, other than Tyson Walker just poking it while they're setting up the offensive set. Like that doesn't happen at this level of college basketball. It happens in middle school, sometimes high school, and he was doing that almost at least once a game of just early shot clock, stealing the ball with 26 seconds as the high screen is about to come. So I think I agree. The defense is great. I think we are starting to see a little bit of Trey Hollman having those fast hands. I don't think he has probably mastered it to the level of Tyson. No, I don't think anybody ever can, but he's showing some of those flashes of the fact that you can tell he's been learning from Tyson on defense. And I guess, the next thing that we can talk about is kind of some of the pieces that are returning. For me, Trey Hollman was the guy that took the biggest leap this past season, I would say. I'd been hearing before the season started, like Coach Izzo and the staff, they felt that he was by far the most improved player. And then the season started and we saw that. Few games, obviously, where he was inconsistent, but I would like to know who wasn't inconsistent on the team other than maybe Malik Hall. Right. So that's fine with me. And then, defensively, he's great. Offensively, great spot-up shooter, as we found out this year. And then I don't know necessarily if he'll be the guy that kind of chops up a defender on the perimeter with like 5 seconds to go on the shot clock and gets you 2 consistently. But he's shown the ability to hit some layups. He looks like he has developed some semblance of a floater. So he'll be some steady offense for them next year. And I would anticipate that probably what makes the most sense would be to not necessarily have him in the starting lineup, but I would play him starters minutes, and I would play him a ton of minutes at both the point guard spot behind Fears and then at the 2 guard spot, where I would be moving Akins down this upcoming season. So he'll play like well over 20 minutes, and he'll be the primary backup for both of those guys. But I don't think that in your best 5, it makes sense to have 2 kind of almost pure point guards there, and then maybe Akins at the 3, and then maybe Booker at the 4, and then a center at the 5. Whereas I'd like to see one of those spots be for kind of a portal wing, which we can talk about that later. But just in the Trey Hollman discussion, I wanted to say that I kind of like for him to be in the same role next year, but just getting pretty much as many minutes as he wants, just not really with a starter's label next to his name.
100%. And like, it was a tough end of the year for him. Not the greatest game against North Carolina, but what happened the week before, the 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, and say what you will about the plus minus stat in the box score, it can be a little wonky at times, but he led the team in both the Big Ten tournament games against Minnesota and against Purdue. And look, it doesn't just match the box score, it matches the eye test too. You saw him very active, and no one's even close to winning or competing with him for the most improved player from last year. It was a shock because, the kid was shooting 23% from 3 last year. He ended at 42%. And I know it was like just 2 attempts per game, but still 83s. That's a decent sample size where you can look and say, hold on, like this guy actually is a 3-point threat on a team that next year, like shooting could very well be an issue if, let's say that Norman doesn't pan out for some reason. And we've seen Akins be streaky at times. So to have Trey be that guy, now will he be 42% the rest of his career? That's asking a lot. But even if he's around like 36, 37%, I'm taking that. And also what I saw, I think this really started to happen in February where we really started to see him come out of his shell. It's just slashing to the lane, beating guys off the dribble, actually finishing at the rack. It's like, what? Hold on. We're improving this drastically in 2 areas of our game right now. Trey, I have to apologize. I was not familiar with your game. Like, holy crap. Like, I knew the defense was going to be there. I knew he could take care of the ball. That was never going to be an issue. But I'm thinking, okay, this guy's like kind of like just Tum Nairn, but a little taller. And my God, wow. Whoa. Was that wrong?
Yeah.
Was that just dead wrong? So,
and the 2 most favorite moments of Trey's career so far for me, looking up to Zach Edey and just kind of getting in his face in the Big Ten tournament.
I love Trey. It's
great. and then the ice in the veins to clinch the game prior. Just
good God, that was crazy against Northwestern. Yeah, that was pumping up the crowd.
Northwestern.
As like the team has collectively shot 48% from the free throw line that day, and you're just already acting like it's money in the bank, like you're already up 5 points.
Yeah.
That kid has some stones, man. I love me some Trey Hollman. He's fun.
And then shifting to one of the other returning players, Jeremy Fears, the combination of Hollman and Fears in that backcourt. We'll see what the total scoring output of those 2 will be. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. But one thing is they're going to be fun to root for. They're going to give you everything they have. They're going to be good on defense, and they're just going to be kind of likable guys that even if they have some issues here and there, that I think people will be much more willing and able to kind of forgive them for it and be patient with them just because of what they bring, despite maybe not having an output at times. And hey, who knows? Maybe Trey will just come out here and average like 18 points per game. So maybe there's so I don't know. I think we'll see what Fears' jump shot is looking like next year. I think there was some data that he improved as a senior from his junior year in high school. So, and there's no question that he works hard on it, but either way, I think they'll be much better at kind of having a dribble drive kind of offense next year. I thought they would be much better at that this year with Hogard, but the issue is I think while he was better at getting past guys than most people in the conference, missing almost every single layup down the stretch did not go ahead and give them an advantage after he would beat his guy. Because, at first I was kind of thinking like, if you remember January, he kind of just wasn't even aggressive. It seemed kind of lackadaisical. And then I'm just sitting there thinking like he can get to the basket almost every time. Like, why won't he do it? Kind of like a Ben Simmons conundrum where like people say, oh, Ben's not good because he has to develop a jump shot. And people are like, oh, AJ can't shoot. He's not forcing him to guard him out there. I'm like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't need to know how to shoot. He simply just needs to start driving to the lane. But then, Matt, February and March, he started doing that and he started missing all of them. And then I had no answers. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't know how to kind of fix the output at the point guard position. And it was kind of unfortunate because I feel like his effort in the North Carolina game was very good. But the fact that he went out there with a lot of those missed layups, I think that was unfortunately, and it's sad to put it this way, but I think that was kind of a representation of just him when he's trying his hardest, it's not all put together sometimes. So it is what it is. But
not to go back to the North Carolina game, but there were just so many moments like that where it's like, oh, this is just like a great summation of the entire year. Like the layups being an issue. And hey, a really hot start, and what's that? Oh, they're going on a run. Oh, and we're not calling a timeout during the 17-3 run. Like that was another theme throughout the season too. Having someone else have a career day behind the arc like Harrison Ingram, like we just mentioned earlier. It was all over the board, JT.
Yeah.
No, I'm trying to keep vibes happy. No, let's keep talking off season and why we can smile about the future.
Yeah. So I would pencil in kind of those guys getting major minutes at the 1 and 2 spots. Like I said, Hollman, the primary backup at both in my ideal view, and then Fears the starting point guard. Jace Richardson then being like the third option at kind of those spots there.
It's a good third option.
Yeah, for sure. And then looking at the starting 2 spot, like I said, I'd move Akins down there. I think he drastically needs to improve his ability to beat guys off the dribble. I think at the end of the day, though, the team is significantly better with him than without him. He is a streaky shooter, like you said, but when he's hitting, you need that. And even when he's not hitting, you see his effort on defense is undeterred.
100%.
There's moments where like 12 minutes will go by and you're wondering if Jaden Akins is there today. And then suddenly you see him have just an absolute huge putback offensive rebound, and then go on the other end, have a steal. And you're like, yep, there's Jaden Akins. And I don't think you can replace that very easily. So I think big asset. He still needs to improve parts of his game. That's also another reason why I don't think that there's a high chance of him leaving this offseason.
Gotcha.
Last year he did kind of test waters and think he thought he was a little better than he was last year, but I don't think that he would think that this year. And especially with the fact that he'll be having a role of more ball handling responsibilities than he had before. And I think that's something he's wanted. So I think the fact that he'll have more of a role than he'll like than he had, that'll be good. And yeah, I don't really consider him a huge threat to leave, even though there's nothing confirmed in concrete there. Then moving to the 3 spot, Matt, I guess this is where we can just introduce like more portal talk. I would absolutely expect them to go ahead and get a portal wing. Somebody asked on Twitter before we started recording, what are the odds that Izzo gets at least one player from the portal this year? I would put them at extremely high odds that they get at least one. And that at least one, if they don't get 2, but if they get at least one, I would say they're definitely getting a portal wing. It'll be somebody that I expect to be in like a scorer, big wing kind of a mold. Like, I don't want to use like Dalton Connect and Baylor Shireman as examples because that's basically the cream of the crop there.
Yeah.
But like even if you get like an AJ Store type, a 6'7" guy that with volume can score it from all 3 levels, like that's the kind of need they have there. And ideally that'll be the guy that gets you points when the offense is stagnating now that Tyson Walker's gone and things of that nature. So I would say very, very high chances they get someone like that. Now, the question that people would ask after hearing me say that, I'm guessing is, all right, why haven't they been connected to some? That's where I would say, I'm not saying this as a factual report, but I am going to go ahead and lay out a scenario where what do they gain if they see, or if anyone sees that Tipton is reporting that Michigan State is one of 17 or 15 schools that reached out to a kid? They don't gain much. But now if Michigan State is one of the 2 or 3 best schools in that list, and a fringe school like, I don't know, TCU is saying, all right, maybe we need to circle back here and look at what this evaluation is all about because MSU is picking the portal and they're after this kid. Let's go ahead and just throw us like $500,000 after this kid. Suddenly the bidding war gets out of control. Essentially, they don't gain anything by being tied to anybody. And also keep in mind, they haven't had exit meetings with anybody yet. So they start being linked to 3 different wings that are the mold of a 3. And Jaden Akins is sitting at his house scrolling through, and he's like, why are they connected to all these 3s? And you haven't even had the meeting with him where you can sit down and explain to him, Jaden, actually, you're probably going to be getting a role that you like and you would want more as a 2, and explain that to him and his family. And if you haven't had the chance to do that, you don't need anything getting murky and causing any panic beforehand. So from everything that I have gathered, they're not just sitting on their hands, sitting around looking at the wall saying, hey, well, can't wait for these exit meetings to start in a few days, and then we can start getting to work. Until then, let's just sit around and swivel in our chairs. That is not what is happening. I don't have names for you that I know that they have for sure targeted. I've heard whispers, but nothing confirmed to the point where I would ever report on it. Mm-hmm. But I can confidently kind of say they're not just sitting there not reaching out to kids either. At least at the portal, or at least with the big wing scorer mold, at the very least there.
Yeah.
Center, I don't know if they even know how it's going to play out yet. I think that's where the meetings will be very, very key. Now, that doesn't mean that they probably haven't reached out to 1 or 2 guys, but I just can't speak on that as confidently as I can with the wing spot. So there's just a lot of moving pieces with the center spot. Madi could go back. Madi could leave. Madi could come back. And if Madi comes back, does Kohler leave? Does Kohler leave, period? Does Kohler stay, period? Cooper, I think he's probably staying either way, but you could have anywhere from 1 to 3 of those guys wanting to come back. And as a result, if 3 come back, 1 of them could want to leave, but you don't know which of those would be. So there's just a lot that you don't know with who could be coming back. And if Kohler comes back and Madi doesn't come back, what do you change? What kind of center you want as maybe a portal center get? So it's just so convoluted there that it's hard to know if from their position, and then it's even harder for me to talk about it or report on it.
I'm a big timeline guy, so maybe you could help me with this, because not only am I a timeline guy, but I'm also a very impatient guy. Like a lot of Michigan State fans out there that want to see some changes this offseason. When do you think it's time to, let's call it worry, if we don't hear anything of Michigan State being connected to any player or any certain position of player? Because right now I'm looking at these tweets coming out from Tipton, for example, and Michigan State isn't on the board.
Yeah.
And I know they got these meetings that they have with the players here, but there are already names coming off the portal board right now. Like, this can be a fast process, and I just don't want Michigan State to be in a place, let's say, that they aren't back channeling, they aren't reaching out to anyone. I don't want it to be a thing where they're the 40th program a week too late to some of these guys, because you know what rubs some kids the wrong way, especially in recruiting or transfer portal, is being a day late to the party, if not a week late to the party. So, like, that's where I start to get a little antsy here. Now, are you going to say I need to calm down and, like, you're going to give me a few days here, or what? How do you see the timeline here before panic should set in?
Well, for one, I don't blame anyone for being panicked, because this program has not, as we know, just jumped over the portal over the years. So for one, anyone that's sitting there panicking and is saying, hey, I'm kind of nervous, haven't been connected to anybody, I'm not going to be sitting there and being like, oh, you big dummy, you don't understand how this works at all.
You can tell me that. That's okay. I can take it. I can take it.
Right. But so, yeah, like, I would kind of defer back to at the wing spot. Like, I'm very confident they're taking somebody. So at that point, like, at least me personally, with what I sit here and what I know and what I'm saying to people, I would not panic easily when it comes to the wing spot. The center spot is a little more where I'm not ready to sit there and be like, you guys should have you guys should be fully patient and just be like, oh, they'll eventually get somebody. You guys just got to keep waiting. But what I will say is that when there are guys that are coming off the board early, and this is different from you saying like they need to start be one of the first people to call. I agree. Like, calling, that's fine. They should be calling. Like, I started refreshing the portal before the season ended. But the guys that are actually committing in the first week, those guys never were coming to Michigan State, because when you commit to the first school you go to, you're committing because of the signing bonus and not because you have done your due diligence, have gone to these 3 schools, sat and looked at their offenses, gotten their office with the coaches, and we're like, this fit right here of what I saw on tape with Coach A on the first visit. That's where I'll be best used for my skill set. So the people that are actually committing in the first week, they're basically just committing off of signing bonus money alone. And those are not the guys that Izzo would want. And a lot of times those are not the guys that would go ahead and succeed. But I agree. You want to be calling the guys. You want to be being one of the people that are showing the early interest. but you probably don't even want a kid that's committing the first week off of one visit and not even doing due diligence on fit and process.
Fair enough. That's like I'm still gonna be the way I am. Like I'm still gonna be scrolling Twitter, being like, "Hey, Tipton, where's any Michigan State connection you got here?" But nevertheless, it does. It helps that yes, they are gonna definitely go after transferring. But when it comes to the big men, like now it's a numbers game because just like you said, it could be anywhere between like 1 or 2 guys leaving.
Right.
But right now, let's call it okay. The guys that we know are gone, like the Tysons, Maliks.
Right.
Okay. And then let's assume that Hogard's not coming back next year.
Right.
You're at 12 guys right now. So like if no one out of that center room leaves, they only have 1 spot left to use on that transfer big. And that means that like it's just not possible to go get another center or another great player. So this isn't like the example like I've been using. This isn't an Indiana situation where you do have 7 open scholarships and like it just we're just gonna see what we feel out there. Like no, it like there are 2 big demands, a big wing and a big center.
Yep.
And you only have 1 spot right now. So we'll see what happens with the center position, who leaves, because if no one leaves, look, hey, that's great. Come back. Spartan Dog for life. We're gonna love having you here. But holy crap. That's pretty detrimental because we need another one of you in this room here to have a successful season next year. In my opinion, in my humble opinion,
my humble opinion, Matt, is one of these guys. I think out of all 3 of these guys, Matt, I believe in all 3 of them being able to contribute minutes at a certain level of program. I think they have all shown flashes where if they go ahead and they transfer down to a spot, they can have 28 minutes per game, and they can go ahead and have a very nice end to their college career. I think they will be very happy that they made that decision, and I don't think it would even require the coaching staff being heartless and pushing anybody out in order for that to happen. I don't know who. I would probably say that I'm most sold on Carson Cooper because unlike Madi, who if he comes back, literally it's his last year. He doesn't have much time to develop. Cooper has 2 years. And I think his length is something that you can't teach, whereas Kohler doesn't necessarily have that. And from my big men, for my money, I need somebody that can just go ahead and rebound and wall up more so than anything. And I think that's kind of where Cooper is. So if one of those 2 other guys, like let's say Madi decides that his final year, he believes that he has so much more to give, but he also understands that the staff has to be fair to Cooper and Kohler in terms of their development arcs, and he's not going to get a ton of minutes if he wants to go somewhere else, and then you're at 2. Or let's say Kohler wants to go back closer to home, and then you're at 2. So I don't see a scenario where all 3 of them are back personally. Because of that, because for their own, like, not selfish reasons, but like, let's take away what would be best for the Michigan State program. For what's best for them, I don't think it makes sense for all 3 of them to be at one spot. It just doesn't make any sense, I would say.
Yeah, it would take a lot of swallowing of the pride too with Madi Sissoko, but like based on like it depends who you talk to. Like that's very well in the realm of possibility that he does come back and he does understand that he's going to have a seriously trimmed down role next year. I mean, even if he's just coming off the bench for 4 or 5 minutes a game, if he loves it here that much,
right?
Well, then what are you gonna do? Just like throw him in a box and ship him out of town? Like, no, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, they won't do that for sure. Yeah,
the scenario I see where like all 3 guys do stay is if it's agreed upon that it's going to be a Carson Cooper, Jackson Kohler. We're just going to change who's the starter here intermittently, but Madi, you're just going to be the 3rd guy, but you understand this. And we've seen that. It's rare to see it happen, but like we have seen it at that position not too long ago with Gavin Schilling. I mean, he saw his role diminish throughout his career too. And by the time he was a senior, like he was playing spot minutes, but he liked it here. He was comfortable. So, I mean, and of course it was a different time. Transfer portal wasn't so popular back then, but still stuck it out here. So that's just what I wonder. It's like, if he does agree that the role's going to be lessened,
right?
Okay, then I guess everyone might be staying in that room. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm just throwing a bunch of things at the wall and seeing if anything's gonna stick. So
yeah,
we'll see. A fun offseason. If not for nothing else, this is gonna be an entertaining one. Lot to talk about. That's for sure.
Yeah, putting a bow on it, we have to talk about the 4 spot because I guess we just went from kind of the 3s to the 5s.
I think
When
Xavier Booker would be good there. I don't know. That's just
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just
that I
yeah,
think, yeah, Booker kinda gets the, unlimited green light there at the 4, and then, ideally, the guy that you get for that big wing 3 spot, that scorer type, ideally, it's a 6'7" guy that also can rebound a bit, so you can put him at the 4, but I'd put probably Cohen Carr. If I had to put a depth chart, I'd probably put Cohen Carr as the backup 4.
yeah.
Um, they played him a good amount at the 3. That was because Malik Hall was obviously giving minutes at the 4 and Booker was giving minutes at the 4. Now, does that change that Malik Hall's gone? Do you put him more at the 4? I don't think laterally he can guard threes. I really can't.
I agree. Yeah.
I know he's very, very explosive vertically, but it's just not there. I know there's things you can teach. Like you can teach defensive positioning, you can teach basketball IQ, like when he gets beat on back cuts all the time, or when somebody gets a first step on him off ball, like that's fine. You can teach that. But there's too many times of on ball defense where like there's not really instincts or anything involved. He just simply gets beat to the spot. I
Mm.
don't know if he can guard threes at this level. I don't. And I would probably put him at the 4, but then you have to worry about the strength. I don't know if guys will kind of body him to get to the hoop. I don't know if he can rebound because he can jump higher than everyone else, but rebounding is a little more of an art than just who can get the highest,
Yeah.
especially if you're not boxing out. So it sounds like I'm very down on him, and I think there's ways that you can make him useful, and at least offensively, like set design stuff for him, back cuts and stuff like that. Obviously, a great athlete, but yeah, like backup 4 is probably the best role for him, and yeah, he has to prove a lot to me. I would say this upcoming season, to be very candid.
Yeah, and that's fair, but like, oh man, it could also be fun in a small ball lineup too. Like you get Fears
Yeah,
out there, you get Akins at the 2, you're big at the 3, and then Carr at the 4 and Booker at the 5. Like if you're decorated by
right.
shooters on the perimeter, like that's going to leave some nice back cut opportunities too,
Yeah.
where you can just throw a lob 15 feet in the air and he's going to come
Mhm.
down with it and bring Breslin Center
Right.
down with him. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and not everybody has to be someone that can go ahead and score on their own. Like, there's fine if somebody is
of
limited
course,
and they only can score off of set plays and transition. That's fine. But I just think like the fan base and everyone should view him accordingly in that mold. Then that's
agreed.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes, certainly. So
right,
if he just get on this Brandon Dawson trajectory, like that'd be nice. Just add a
right,
little bit of slashing to your game later on in your
right,
career. Like who's going to say no to that?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Matt that kind of does do it, right? Oh, I guess just names wise, I know I didn't mention Garrick Norman. He's going to be somebody that I think can provide him a nice spark, also at the 3 spot. If I'm right of kind of mostly having Cohen Carr be a 4, I would say Garrick Norman would probably be the primary 3 there. I know Jaden Akins can play up 2, just like Hollman would be playing back up minutes at the 2. Akins could be doing backup minutes at the 3, but yeah, Garrick Norman will have a role for sure, and he'd kind of be in that 2-3 spot, probably the 3 more so.
Yeah.
But those are positionless, I guess, so that doesn't matter. And then Jesse McCullough coming up
Yeah.
from the high school ranks. His defense, I only saw a few clips, but he was impressive in terms of walling up and length and timing
Okay.
some of his blocks, not fouling and using his length correctly. I was kind of thinking like maybe he'd kind of redshirt. His thing was it was adamantly told to me like his whole junior year he's a forward, he's listed as a center, but he's a stretch 4. But his rim defense has gotten to the point where now people are starting to view him again as a 5, which is what he was listed at to begin with. But back
Okay.
then, people didn't think that was a correct listing. So now we'll see where he kind of ends up at. I guess it'll depend on weight. But he was a redshirt candidate to me. I don't know what his leap necessarily looks like if you watch every game, every single minute. But he's made some decent leaps. So we'll see kind of what happens there. I wouldn't use him as a reason to not take a big or something of that nature.
Yeah.
But I think he'll probably be better as a freshman than I was originally thinking a few months ago. How much better, I don't know. But I just had to acknowledge him. So I think now we have hit on every single person on the roster on the projected roster, Matt, unless I'm mistaken.
I was going to say, well, like when Jesse McCullough hits from 3-point land at 46% last year, and we saved him for last. Like, do you think this is all going to be clipped and remembered, or no? He's got a pure stroke. I'm obviously joking with the 46% from 3 number, but like the guy does have a smooth stroke out there. So like whether we do see it right off the bat as a freshman, or just even as little as a sophomore, like that's going to be a promising promising shooting threat to have out there.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah. Matt,
JT.
Friday, we'll be in attendance to directly hate on the product in front of us on the court at Little Caesars Arena. Credentialed media will be there, obviously, in a very respectful capacity of all 4 teams that are.
I'm gonna wear a suit to this thing. This is how serious we're gonna get here.
Okay, so I will not wear my Gonzaga jersey and my Gonzaga foam finger as we see them take on Zach Edey. I guess change of plans. I
have a half Gonzaga, half Creighton jersey that I'm gonna pull up to on press row. Honestly, like they're probably gonna put us like up like in the Red Wings banners. Like I'm gonna hang on to like their 1999 Stanley Cup banner for dear life. Like that's where our seats are gonna be for this black tie event. But yeah, it's gonna be a hoot and a half.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's Detroit probably has the best set of games. I say as I have actually not gone through and looked at regional breakdowns of the games.
The East is solid too. Like the San Diego State versus UConn, and then Illinois, Iowa State is fine. But like, man, Detroit has got some bangers, man. That's gonna be nice.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, like Creighton, I have in my Final Four, and so I have I made 2 brackets. I always make 2. I make one that I make purely off of vibes, and then I have one that I make off of vibes, and then I go through and I change things based on a few things. Like I duplicate the first one, and then I change things to be a little more logical. Now, the one that always has more logic always ends up doing worse, and that once again is the case this year. So that one is pretty much eliminated. Not in a horrible sense, but I had Kentucky in the national title game losing. So the national title team is out. But the primary bracket, the vibes one, Creighton in the Final Four. Okay. I have the other 3 Final Four teams still alive as well. I have UNC, I have UConn, and then I have Houston. So no, I have Tennessee, not UNC, because I had 2 1 seeds, a 2 seed, and a 3 seed. Yeah. So I'm going over there, not totally embarrassing myself so far this March Madness, and I would like for that to remain. So no rooting interest, just rooting for good basketball. So I guess that means I do have rooting interest against Purdue, but I would say that other than that, just there for a good time.
So you're doing better at your bracket than someone that had St. Mary's, Kentucky, and Auburn in their Final Four. Not only do they get eliminated in the first weekend, JT, they got eliminated first round.
First day.
Didn't even get to sweat it out. It was just blood from the start. But I have a tangent that I want to go down to potentially end the show. Who knows?
Yes,
the show can end in 90 seconds or 90 minutes. There's been a lot of chatter and debate on Twitter of like, hey, how's this tournament been? Like, I think it's a little boring. There needs more firepower. I think it's been a fine tournament. Like, if anything, like I think it's been great. Like you already have like a big upset early on, especially with the blue blood in Oakland sinking Kentucky. Yes. Now, are we a little biased just because Oakland is 15 minutes from where I'm at right now? I know that you're a little close to Oakland. Yep, sure, maybe that helps too. But for me, it was more so like Kentucky losing. Like that was fun. And overtime games, how many of them were there? Like there were a lot. And maybe what hurts is that, well, some of them happened beyond 10 p.m. So maybe people were hitting the hay already and they didn't be able to see it. But just look at the slate of games this weekend. Like this is the nice part about not having a crazy influx of upsets. Like there are bangers of games, all time slots, all days. Like it's going to be nice. Like, so I don't get the whole, like, the tournament's boring. This tournament kind of sucks. Like, no, this is actually one of the better ones I think we've seen so far.
Yeah. I don't think this tangent will go very long because I just pretty much agree with everything you said. I think cool. I think a tournament needs some first round upsets, kind of like we saw with Oakland and Kentucky, and like that check that box, and Yale over Auburn check that box. And then beyond that, though, like you kind of want some of the 1 and 2 seeds going kind of deeper, like Coach Izzo was saying. I know his comments were coming from like kind of a different lens because we were talking about tournament expansion, but like. Yeah, I'd like to see some upsets, but then I'd also not really want to see those Cinderellas go too far because I'm going to be honest, Matt. Last year with Florida Atlantic and Miami, and I didn't really enjoy that Final Four that much. I was not kind of chomping at the bit to tune into that, to be honest. Yeah. But you tell me like Houston and Creighton are going to be facing off in one side of the bracket, and then I don't know, like UNC and UConn or UConn and Arizona. Like I'll take that any day. Oh, actually, yeah, I messed it up. In my Final Four that's still alive, I have Creighton in the bottom right. I have Arizona in the bottom left. I have UConn in the top left, and then I have Houston in the top right. It wasn't Tennessee and Creighton because obviously they play each other in the Elite Eight.
That would be tough. Yeah, you're
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
So, but yeah, I agree with your point.
Speaking of last year's Final Four, this is here's another tangent. One of the all-time games, buzzer beater to get to the national title. How dramatic! Justin, how many times have you seen that highlight in life? I have not seen
0 times, man.
I'm not even trying to be funny or do it, but I literally have not, and I'm online 20 hours a day. Like I've seen every single video there is out there on the internet. Yes. I have not seen the replay of that last second shot to go to the national title game in the Final Four since that game happened on April 1st. Yes. Is that not insane?
Insane.
It's crazy. So I'm not entirely blaming it on it being a 9-5 game, but
I'll blame it on
kind of. I mean, it's so that's just like one of the more bewildering things that's happened. Like that should be one of the most iconic moments in the tournament's history. And it's not like it happened 13 years ago. This happened less than a year ago, and no one even talks about it, thinks about it, or sees it anymore. So, hey, with all these blue bloods coming in, I don't hate it because at least we can get moments that we're actually going to remember and see for the rest of our lives because, man, the Owls versus Aztecs, that just got shut out of the history books. So,
and that just goes to show that really college basketball doesn't count in the current era of the COVID waiver. So, last year's highlights weren't shown for that reason. Last year's Final Four was bad for that reason. So I look forward to I think the year after next year the year after next year finally counting for the first time in many years.
Year after next year. So Final Four 2026, wherever that is going to be the first legitimate year. Let's find out where that is.
Makes sense.
Because I think Detroit is 27. So we're in Indianapolis. Oh, as God intended. Let's go. Indianapolis is the best Final Four city anyway.
I agree.
So this is great. Oh, there's
a reason that like the combine is in Indianapolis, just logistically very sound.
Amazing event city. It is world class. So I'm sorry, San Antonio, who gets next year's Final Four, but that's a fraudulent Final Four.
Yeah, no reason to want to go to the San Diego Final or San Antonio Final Four if you're a team. So
no. Unless MSU wants to do it, then we'll just
but they shouldn't. They should more so worry about the year after that's Final Four.
Have some pride. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh man, I guess the last tangent, since you were talking about last year's Final Four. Dusty May hired as the head coach at Michigan. Upgrading from, I don't know how you wouldn't upgrade from the situation that Michigan.
That's my take on the whole thing. The only way to go is up.
I will say that in some ways I think that it's a good hire. In other ways, I will push back on the narratives. He has 4 20-win seasons, and I think he has 4 of the 6 20-win seasons in FAU history.
Yeah,
I think that what he did there, building their program, is something commendable. I think that in a coaching carousel where there's not really much other talent, and now you see USC kind of Louisville flailing away at kind of their kind of vacancy. I don't think Michigan could have done much better. I would say that it was a fine hire in that regard. Now, with that said, some of the narratives around like Dusty May and the March darling and last year's Cinderella run and all that really doesn't mean a single thing when you're trying to have a estimate of how good a coach is and how sustainable success is. Like if you have multiple deep runs, sure, right? Like you want to be Brad Stevens and you've done it twice and you have the program at those levels and they're actually that much better than everybody else. That's different. But here you have a Dusty May tournament run that he easily could have lost in that first round. I don't necessarily remember the exact specifics of it, but wasn't there a jump ball that wasn't called a foul? It had been called a foul. It would have lost even in the first round of last year's tournament. Something along those lines.
Was it against Memphis?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I remember just tomfoolery at the end of that game because I think I Memphis in my Elite Eight, so I was really heartbroken after that one. But
So you have that happen, and then you go ahead and you beat some pretty easy teams. Like Purdue gets knocked out right above you, very early on.
That helps.
You cannot sit there and be like, he's the savior of Michigan basketball because of his Final Four run last year, especially when he has followed it up with losing to Northwestern without two of their starters the very next tournament run. So to me, like I said earlier, he's a good hire in terms of that's the best they could have done. But if you're sitting there thinking he's good because of this huge Cinderella run and he's this March darling, next coming of Izzo, like just taking teams to the Final Four as an 8 seed, then you frankly have gotten conned in terms of where your expectations are and why they're there. With that said, if I'm Michigan, I'd probably make a similar hire. Maybe DeVries, who West Virginia got. Maybe Pat Kelsey. Like I haven't dove deep into the flaws of a lot of these guys, so I can't sit here and saying that I would hire Dusty May if I was Michigan, but I can see the logic of it. But some of the discourse around it is people are getting conned.
But that's kind of what you get when the only way to go is up, right? Like it's very easy to talk. Like they could have hired the bartender at Rick's Ann Arbor, and like that would have been a substantial upgrade over Juwan Howard. So
yeah,
nothing snarky to say about Dusty May or the hire. Like it's a good hire. It's probably the best hire in this cycle, I would say. But to kind of say something about the cycle, perhaps I promise I'm not trying to be a hater. Believe me, I could be a hater with the best of them if I want to, but I don't know. Like you come back from a Final Four year, you return a lot of your guys all to just barely crawl back into the tournament and then lose in the tournament to Northwestern down. What was it? One or two of their best players?
Two. Yeah.
Like, I'm not so sure if there's a lot of shine on that from last year. I don't know.
And the resources that he had at FAU relative to the rest of the conference after that run, like they ponied up big time to keep that whole roster intact. So it wasn't even necessarily like, oh man, he went ahead. He went to a Final Four. He lost guys to the portal. He flipped it around. He went ahead and made another run with a new roster. Like, no, you made your one Cinderella, I would say kind of fluky run. And then you went ahead and had all the donors step up and keep your roster intact for you. And you return the favor by losing to a Northwestern team without two starters. So again, give him credit for the 20 wins in conference. Give him credit for building the program up to that point. But I don't want to hear a ton about the March success. Like, no, you can mention it as a footnote, but I don't want to hear that as a sticking point for why he was hired and why you believe he's a savior for your program.
It is what it is. I'm sure he'll do fine there. Because, I mean, you have to go out of your way to not just be fine at Michigan. Like, I cannot believe how bad of a job the last guy did there. That is
absolutely unbelievable. And we were hearing like 20 months ago, Matt, that he was better than Izzo.
Signed an extension. Yeah, he signed an extension for God's sake. So, yeah, whatever. That was a complete Fab Five failure. That was something else, man. So, but good luck to him his next chapter of life. I don't hate the guy. I actually love the guy. One of the hardest parts of the season was when I got that text saying, "Hey, Michigan just fired Juwan Howard." Like, no. So,
yep.
It was fun while it lasted.
The MMA career is going to be a good one.
The one thing I hate, I'm sorry, the one thing that I want with Dusty May is that I do want him to be hateable, because that's one thing I liked about Juwan Howard is that like this guy was hateable. I loved rooting against Juwan Howard. I loved seeing him fail at every stage of coaching and running a program. Whereas John Beilein, this is why I didn't like him, because everyone would be like, oh, he's just too respectable. He's too hard to hate. It's like, I know. And that doesn't sit right with me. Like, I want to despise the coach that is on that other bench. And Juwan Howard just hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And he just drove it into the ground. It was like a fever dream the last few years just watching what unfolded over there. But so if Dusty May can be like kind of like a PRIC, you know what, for a little bit, like I would actually welcome that. I want to hate what's going on over there. So let's keep doing that.
Yeah. I did find it kind of surprising that, well, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm nitpicking here, and I don't think any of their fans saw anything even remotely wrong with this quote, because the current project was so unenjoyable. But he said, our goal is to play an enjoyable style of basketball. I was kind of thinking like, hey, isn't the goal to play whatever style of basketball gets you wins? Like, shouldn't the word win be somewhere at the end of that sentence? But hey, I mean, that's me nitpicking. So, I mean,
get people in the seats. Yeah. Got to get people in the seats first, and then we'll win second.
Just Harlem Globetrotter style basketball, 7 alley-oop attempts that convert 4 of them, and
confetti buckets galore. It's gonna be a hoot and a half over in Ann Arbor, man. It's gonna be great.
All right, Matt. I will see you in the rafters of LCA as we
That's right.
Bite our tongues at the Purdue basketball experience. And as Matt said earlier, go ahead, like, subscribe, comment for the algorithm at the very least, if not for anything else. And we appreciate everyone tuning in. And this probably will be the last full basketball-centric show. I actually was planning on putting out like a football depth chart piece this week and doing a football show this week, but did want to do one last week of kind of just full basketball only research, basketball only like draft writing, basketball only podcast. So I'll get a piece out probably when this podcast is out, or maybe at least the same day here tomorrow, Thursday morning, of kind of looking at the portal and what they're going to do and what they should do. And after that, football season will be upon us here. So appreciate everyone tuning in. And for myself and Matt, we'll see you guys here next week.